Crowdfunding for GoldenFox pictures to support them on my patrons, including Science Steel Rail, Jack Foley, Courtney Bright, Thomas Fan 3751, Brandon Bishop, Azure Lore, Rainbow Dash Fan, and Toxic. Thank you all so much for your support. For any future updates and upcoming projects that you would like to know about, support me on Patreon for occasional blogs where I share what's in the works or any future scheduled releases. That being said, I hope you enjoy this video.
Don't you just love Granny's heartwarming fruitcake? What's wrong with her?
Oh, come on, Maine, move!
And until you solve them to find the key, we're locked inside! I'm trying to teach my students how to feed a hedgehog.
How could I forget? The jump rope jamboree is also cancelled.
Interesting that there have been several shorts of MLP recently. And I don't mean Equestria Girl shorts. I mean there have been actual shorts since The Best Gift Ever. This is kind of unexpected, yet I shouldn't be surprised. How would I? These shorts are roughly 3 minutes in length, and because the material is so minimal, I'm not sure how it would be possible, especially considering that I didn't want to make my review short. What? Fuck no! Those are a cheap clusterfuck of a mess! Ugh, I can't argue with that, but seriously? An unorganized clusterfuck of a series of reviews that viewers have to spend extra effort browsing for? Have I really gotten that low as a reviewer? I need to get some coffee. Okay, now that I got that out of my system, I had a feeling I'd have to come to this compromise sooner or later, so I might as well talk about it. So lightning rounds. For those who don't know what they are, they're basically a set of brief reviews clustered in one video. Voice of Reason and Silver Quill are primary examples of committing to this, and stepping outside of that is Hot Diggity Demon, where he did his lightning round on movies in his Brain Dumps episode on the 2016 year-end review. So even with bigger channels, why do I hate this? Because to me, this method is just fucking lazy, unorganized, and inconvenient to the viewer. The first time I saw this method take into effect, I immediately reacted with just no. Just no. Sure, it's a way to rock yourself up to reviewing episodes or any general media to catch up on what is current, but it is also a hassle for your viewers to find and search whatever episode the critic may want to know their feelings of. And in doing so, they'd have to skim through one of these lightning rounds, which is a pain in the ass. Why bother going through a video to find a review of something that could just be a video of its own? This also passes a huge opportunity in detail what you may have missed, or may have wanted to talk about in the long run, but just couldn't. There was an analogy that Aaron used in his sequelitis on Castlevania 2 regarding game design. The analogy was a comparison to a high-class dessert where you slow down and enjoy every bite of what you love, and you're glad you're satisfied with what you got. Lightning rounds is like stuffing that whole dessert in your mouth without bearing the moment to enjoy the taste. There's no satisfaction in rushing through your set of short reviews without giving any further juicy details. Now, I just want to point out that I'm not trashing anyone who uses this method. I respect their decision, and I hope that no one takes any offense to this in the future. With that said, I prefer to be as informative as possible whenever I review anything than just crunching a critique into a small paragraph. And having them individually reviewed, it just feels convenient for everyone. But that isn't the case for these shorts. All things considered, I have to make an exception. And what better way to start on this than actually doing it in style? This is also why I'm dressed for the occasion. May I present to you, the Lightning Wheel. Yeah, so I hate everything uses it as well. It's quite handy and actually gets the viewer engaged to what comes next by the random nature of it. Not necessarily. This and any future installments will be categorized depending on the topic at hand. This will hint the viewer on what to expect, and if that isn't enough, I'll timestamp whatever which ones they'll want to know about. This is also a good opportunity in tackling on other works, such as smaller fan works, animated PMVs, or certain major projects that may have their own series, like Two Best Sisters Play. Well, that's what volumes are for. In fact, this is the first volume I'm covering. I won't be able to cover them all because there could be some more shorts after this. Maybe not. The amount I'll be covering on average will be around 4 to 5, maybe even more after that. The current entries that I have here are based on what was first out. Most of the 4 that I'm choosing took place during the holidays. Arguably, I could have talked about these at that time, but I already had quite a handful as is. But better late than never. Let's spin the wheel and dive into these shorts already.
Good morning, students and teachers. Due to the snow, Yodeling Club is canceled. Thank you.
Odd. That didn't sound like Twilight.
Here's one of the first entries from the holidays, and as the title states, it's what you'd expect. This is definitely something everyone can relate to, dealing with interruptions when you're in the middle of something, and it becomes a never-ending cycle of irritants and distraction. It's represented through a rule of 3 formula with an additional insult to injury to escalate the amount of that said irritants, as Rarity was teaching the students about making heartwarming dolls. Looking at what Rarity is teaching, it makes me wonder why Sandbar would attend if he knows about heartwarming dolls already. As is, he shared his story in the Heartwarming Club. My closest guess is that maybe he'd be in a system with everyone else, but that isn't relevant. In addition to the short's execution, I also love hearing the background music become silenced every time the speaker goes off. It's as if the composer is already getting fed up with the announcer's bullshit. Not to mention, it gets me every time I see Rarity storm out and causing that speaker to fall. Seeing that it's Applejack, it did seem pretty surprising to me as we learned that she apparently has a gift in voice acting. I'm not complaining about it, but it does seem out of the blue knowing she has that talent. I normally would expect Pinkie Pie since she's always the one to surprise the main characters in most of the show. So this is quite a different change in pace and something a bit more to give to Applejack. You know, instead of calling her a background pony all the fucking time. It's an overall okay short as it ends on a sweet note with Applejack utilizing her voice talent when sharing the class the story of Equestria.
And still the Wendigos raged outside. Ooh, ooh, ooh. I win, fair and square.
Applejack and Rainbow Dash go at each other once again in this lather, rinse, and repeat, as it is the same song and dance like the non-compete clause. The last episode I needed to ever be reminded of. I don't necessarily hate this short, I mean it wasn't as mean-spirited or stupid, but I did take issue with it. Having these two compete each other is undermining what was entertaining when it came to Season 1. I stated Fall Weather Friends was one of my favorite episodes, but what made that episode work was that the rivalry started out naturally. They had a good level of sportsmanship with each other at the beginning of the episode, until they got so carried away in trying to win that they went on to cheat and let their own pride take over. Yes, there's also the moment where they fought for the ticket and the Ticketmaster, but that was because everyone wanted it. But the message in Fall Weather Friends is not to let the competitive nature overtake you. Well, it seems they didn't learn jack shit in either this or the non-compete clause. To be fair, these dares they made were just silly ones. Though holding over 20 snowballs stacked on top of each other or flying slower than the average velocity of flight were impossible dares. On the contrary, I did enjoy the first dare where Dash had to wait patiently in line holding her breath until she snapped, and having Applejack hold back from reaching her hat was pretty funny.
I missed you so much, Tallulah.
Is it natural for someone to give a name to their own beloved artifact? That's actually a good point. That must be a pony thing. What? No. Pinkie Pie thankfully finishes this stupid competition by daring each other to stop playing, as they should, but as you'd expect they refuse and Pinkie's the winner. This was actually a clever way to conclude the short, though I'm not sure if they'll learn anything new or not. What I do know is, I don't hate this short since it is entertaining to a degree, but it was certainly mindless and forgettable to me.
I win! I win! I win! Oh yeah!
I need something spectacular. Something moving.
This one was by far the worst. I know that's an immature exaggeration, but I really hated the short compared to even the later shorts that I have yet to cover in Volume 2. My biggest problem with this short is how it's concluded. The whole premise is Rarity trying to figure out a spell that'll have flowy and moving hair like the Royal Sisters. Most of the short is trial and error until she finds out the solution. Spike. Considering that he has his unresolved crush and his wings, she uses him to her advantage. It even shows how exhausted he is when doing her a favor. Christ, and why wasn't kidding when he stated that her seductive charms are a bad moral influence to children? I've stated my issue with Spike's crush before and how static it has been throughout the entire series, but that's just crossing the line. I looked up some Q&As from Lauren Faust for a future video to work on, and you know what I found out? This following answer regarding Spike's crush. When I was writing the scene in the pilot where Twilight met Rarity for the first time, I needed to get across the idea that Rarity was exceptionally beautiful. I came up with the crush at that point, and it stuck. So basically, you wrote Spike's crush just to emphasize how pretty Rarity is. I normally wouldn't mind having this written in since it relates to a lot of young viewers who have the same encounter, but at the same time, there was no resolution to this. Yes, having a childhood crush is natural, but when it continues after several years, it gets grating. If you want Spike to have some childlike traits to relate to young boys, fine. I didn't mind seeing him giggle excitingly, being snarky half the time, or smelling his own feet and Spike at your service. A lot of young boys will do that, but don't put his childlike traits in the way of his development. That being said, Rarity, if you want a flowy mane, get yourself a portable fan and use her magic, or even ask Celestia for further insight on how her mane is flowy. You certainly didn't mind other methods when you were on the train when the window was open. But don't have Spike do the dirty work for you to the point of exhaustion. That's just messed up. That favor for Rarity was harmless, and that's just nitpicking at this point. So yeah, I hated this short. It was bland, it was anticlimactic, and it just felt unpleasant at the end as it left a bad taste in my mouth. I'll be expecting some argumentative comments on this one. It's gonna be rough.
Welcome to my amazingly amazing escape room! So, you amazed?
Yes.
Okay, so the last one we have left in this volume is the Great Escape Room. Imagine that one scene where the main six were in that escape room and all bottled up, but much more entertaining. Yeah, by comparison, the escape room subplot was so underplayed that it didn't get much of an investment compared to the rest of the said episode. Not to mention how weird and out of place it was to have a musical number when Trixie got her comeuppance midway. This short, however, got me some chuckles, and at times feeling sorry for half the group. Arguing over what steps to follow, the embarrassing outcomes of trial and error. This was especially the case for Rarity when she was counting straws of hay. Good God, I would never wish that on anyone. I was once a part of an escape room with Keyframe, Thespio, and Midnight Sonata, as the central theme was Alice in Wonderland. It was so much fun, but it was also difficult and at times frustrating as you have to keep track of the many puzzles that are laid out for you, and not to mention they have to be solved in a certain order. So this was easy to acknowledge the frustration factor. However, for anyone who hasn't been in an escape room before, they may have trouble grasping the idea and only just see it as friends bickering at each other, but trust me, the frustration factor in an escape room is inevitable. Seeing that Pinky planned this, I'm not surprised. On the one hand, I loved how dedicated she was in setting this all up for her friends to have fun. On the other hand, however, purposely forgetting on what you set up and what your surprise outcome is not the greatest idea. I get you wanted to be part of the fun, but what if your friends never figured out what the clues were? You'd be locked in the barn for a disturbingly long time. I'm not going to question it, just pointing that out there. At the very least, this short acknowledges the supposed skills by having Twilight reference all bottled up. Though considered we were shown just one escape room sequence with minimal screen time, I wasn't sure if they could be trusted. It would have to take more than one escape room to accept that kind of challenge. Not the best, but it's an all-in-all fun short and worth killing a few minutes.
Woohoo! Wasn't that so much fun?
Fun is a very strong word.
So that's the end of Volume 1. Volume 2 will be on its way and I'll be tackling on those shorts, as well as other projects that will be categorically reviewed. These can all be watched through a simple search, but I'll also have these linked in the description box to save you some trouble. That being said, I hope you like this idea as I will be doing more of it in the future. But I'd like to know what you think. Until then, this is GoldenFox, and take care.